Alright, so here's the first of 3 videos on this practice final exam. Again, I'm going to try to go through it as quick as I can. I'm going to try to do 30 problems on each videos. And I'll probably I'm going to do some of the math really fast in the standpoint of the calculator work. So first problem here says there are 480 people at a play. The admission price was $2 for adults, $1 for children. The admissions charge receipts were $770. How many adults and kids attended? So here's the systems of equations. And so I think this one we set it up and then we use our matrices and do the RREF, the reduced row echelon format, to get to our answer pretty quickly. You can always use substitution method or elimination method if you want to do it as well. So with this in mind, we have a total people. We have a total people number here. So x plus y equals 480. And then the other one, now we have to decide who is a kid, who's an adult for the x and the y. I'm just going to go in order. X is adult, so $2 for every adult plus $1 for every child came out to a total of $770. And again, what I would do is I would create our 2x3 matrix here. So I would go through and go 1, 1, 480, and then go 2, 1, and 770. And then I would do RREF and use that command in the calculator and let it do the work for you fast. And with that in mind, when you find that out, that it ends up being B is what the answer ends up being. Remember, you should always go back, double check, put those numbers in for X and Y in both equations. It's supposed to balance there. Number 2, excuse me. The store is discounting all regular priced items by 30%. Find the function f that computes the sale price of an item having a regular price of X. And then second, if an item normally costs $199.54, what is the sale price? All right, well, there's a couple ways you can think about it. When you look at buying something, you have the original price, and then you're supposed to take 30% off of that original price. So here, I'm liking if we let X be the original price, and then I got to subtract off 30%, which would be 0.3 times X, is what we end up having in there. So there's our function. So with that in mind, that leaves us as this. And again, the reason why we can cross out some of the other ones is this one's just saying we're taking off 30 cents, not 30%, just 30 cents is what that one there is, and that one's a $30 is what that's being taken off of. This other one here is just saying you're only paying 30% of the original price. However, you're actually paying, when it's a 30% discount, you're paying 70% of the original price. So we would actually want to know like a 0.7 there. So D is our answer there. Again, we can go ahead and, since there's no other ones that match on the equation, we don't have to worry about doing the money part, but we can if you want to. Number 3, it says your company uses the quadratic formula to represent the average number of new customers that will be signed on X weeks after the release of your new service. How many new customers can you expect to gain in week 14? This is just a straight plug it in and simplify. So y equals negative 4.5 times 14 squared plus 150 times 14. Be careful just typing that one in there that we don't make any goofy mistakes there. Once you go through the process, the answer there will be A. Again, if you want to pause the video, work ahead of me, come back, you can. Not a bad way to think if you're doing it, right the first time. Number 4 says let FX compute the cost of a rental car after X days of using it at $50 per day. What does the inverse function compute? So the inverse function, if we think about it, f of x computes the cost for the number of days used, then we would kind of switch around the rows. So it'd actually be the number of days for a certain amount of money is what we do. Now, with that in mind, we really can't use the 50 in the reverse process. So our answer is the number of days rented for X dollars. All right, number 5, a little bit more of a robust word problem here. If X is the deposit every 4 weeks, 13 times a year into a bank account, and any annual interest rates expressed in decimal format, great, then the amount of events. So here's our formula that we're supposed to use. If it pays 9% annual interest, determine how much a 20-year-old worker will have to deposit in his account every 4 weeks in order to have $1 million at the end of age 65. So this one's a little bit more lengthier. May want to save this one if you have one like this on the final. Save it for the end and come back. But basically, $1 million is what they have at the end. So $1 million would be the final answer. So it would be by itself equals, and then we have where X is our deposited, and they're asking us determine how much we'll have to deposit in the account every 4 weeks. So we're actually trying to find X. And then now we get to start putting in the rest of the formula. So 1 plus our rate they said was 9%, so 0.09 divided by 13 raised to the 13. Now we got to find the number n, and then minus 1, all that over 0.09 divided by 13. All right, so there's our formula. So now we just got to figure out, okay, what is our n? And n is the number of years, and they are a 20-year-old retiring at 65, so that'd be 45 years. And then now we just need to simplify the right side, divide it into the 1 million, then we'll be able to figure out what X is. So I'm going to do that on a side calculator here real quickly. Bear with me. 0.09 divided by 13. Add the 1 in front. Now raise that to the 13 times 45 power. All right, and then I got to subtract 1 from that. And then now that's being divided by the thing on the bottom. 0.09 divided by 13. All right, and then I'm going to take I'm going to take 1 million and then divide it by the last answer I got on my calculator, and I got 124.51. Okay, a lot of calculator work on that one. Number 6, it says brand A soup contains 883 milligrams of sodium. It is recommended that an average person requires 2,000 calories per day. Consume 2,500 milligrams or less per day. Graph the function that computes the number of milligrams of sodium. They tell us basically if I have 1 can is 2,500, 2 cans is 5,000, and 3 cans of soup is 7,500. They told you how to set up your window in your graphing calculator and try to use the intersection of graph tool to figure out how many cans of soup and so forth, blah, blah, blah. So right now, what we're going to do is you look at them. We're just trying to match the picture to what we're having here. So all those horizontal lines are supposed to be like this is for 1 can at 2,500, and then this one is 2 cans at 5,000, and this is the 3 can at 7,500. Okay, so so each of those is those horizontal lines there for the Y1, Y2, Y3, and Y things there. That's what those things are. And then the diagonal line that we see in there is representing the 2,000 calories per day is what that's representing. So now what I want to do is I want to figure out, well, how many cans, as I work it out to see what, where the intersections are. And so I think the easiest thing is you could go through and, take if I do 883 and figure out how many cans would get me up to the 2,500. And 2 times 880, or sorry, 3 times 883 would give you something like 883 times 3 would give you about 2,600. So to me, you're crossing off this choice, you're crossing off that choice. Now it's down between the next two. And then we're trying to say, okay, what's the difference between A and D? And A and D, the main difference is these are not set up right. When we look at it's 3,000 there, 2, 4, 6,000. So the horizontal lines is what sets this one apart here. So those are the correct ones. So my answer here would be A. All right, we had this one actually as a problem in our notes back in the earlier part of the semester. It says the inequality absolute value of T minus 40 less than or equal to 7.1 describes the range of monthly temperatures for a city. Solve the inequality if the high and low average temperature satisfies the equality. Interpret the inequality. Fantastic. So when we start off with one like this, what we're supposed to do, and there's a couple ways you can approach it. When we go to, I first don't move anything yet. What we can do when we have the absolute value is less than or equal to a number, what we can do is split it up to where it's greater than the negative version and less than or equal to the positive. That's one approach. The other approach is you write down what you see once without the signs, then you write down the middle again and you flip the sign over and make it negative. And either way, you'll work out the same answer. So I get to add 40 out of the inside. You got to do it to both places. So when we do the right side will be 47.1, and the left side, if we do negative 7.1 plus 40, would be 32.9. And so with that in mind, that would be the correct interpretation right there. Boom. All right, so the graph above gives the speed limit along a rural highway after traveling X miles. What are the maximum and minimum speed limits along the stretch of this highway? Estimate the miles highway speed of 50 miles per hour. Great. So what's the max and what's the minimum? Well, there's the max is this line right there, and that would be the minimum. So that's the first thing we're going to search for. It looks like 60 is the max and maybe 25 is the min. So that allows me to cross off this one and this one. So I'm down to those two. And I can cross off the third one because that says 35. So there we go. So this has the right max and the right min. Now the only difference is we can just double check saying estimate the highway with a speed limit of 50 miles per hour. So here is 10 miles and another 10 miles, and that's where they get the 20 miles from. Okay. They say use the graph of f to sketch the inverse of the f using a dashed curve. Okay, great. So when you're finding the inverse, what happens is, technically the way I see this equation is f of x is equal to, it's the cubic graph, so x cubed plus 1. And then now there's a couple rules of thumbs. You can either solve for the inverse function and then graph it, or when you're finding the inverse, what you can do is it reflects it over the y equals x line. And so that would flip it over, and and again, if I solve for the inverse, we would say x equals y cubed plus 1, subtract the 1, And then we would get y equals cube root of x minus 1. And then I'd say f inverse. F to the negative 1 equals that. There's the inverse function. And then now I need to pick out, which one is it. Again, it's a when we look even just looking at what happens is this comes down here, and it's supposed to be that's the way it's kind of shaped when you look at x cubed and the inverse of x cubed. So as I look at my pictures, the only one that comes close to that one is D. We end up going through. There's that little dash line there. Boom. All right, probability. So this goes beginning of the book, all of it, and jumps to the last section we covered. It says 2 6-sided dice are rolled. What is the probability the sum of the two numbers will be 3? All right, so remember when we're rolling 2 dice, the bottom is 36. How can I get a sum of 3? That he's rolling a 2 and a 1, or a 1 and a 2. And that would be 2 out of 36, and then we would reduce that to be 1 out of 18. All right, number 11, in order to receive a B in the course, it is necessary to average of 80% on 2 1-hour exams, each worth 100 points, and on a midterm, 200 points, in a final exam of 500. Great. If a student scores 90, 85, and then 148 on the midterm, what is the minimum score for them to earn a B? Okay, so I want a final grade of an 80%, so 0.8. On the left-hand side, 200-point exams plus 150-point midterm. Oops, sorry, 200-point midterm. Sorry, 200-point midterm plus a 500-point final. Those are the total points. Now, what have they earned? They have earned 90 and 85, a 148, and we're not sure what they need to get on the final, so we're going to let that be the x. And so as we go to simplify, the top is something plus x, on the bottom is 2, 4, be 900 points. And then let's use a calculator to add those three numbers up real quickly. So 90 plus 85 plus 148 is 323. And then now I do inverse operations. I'm going to multiply both sides by the 900. So 900 times 0.8 should be 720. So those cancel. 323 plus x equals 720, and subtract over the 323. And then 720 minus 323 would be 397. So need 397 on final to get AB. So that would be that. All right. Number 12. The cost for labor associated with fixing a washing machine is computed as follows. Fixed price of $25, and then they charge $29 per hour. So our cost, flat $25 fee plus $29 per hour. So I like the first one. I like A. All right, so now they want us to solve symbolic. So we don't have to simplify. We just have to get x by itself here. So I see x twice in the problem, and so we need to get those two. You need to get both these on the same side so we can condense our logs. But to me, here's what we can do is we can rewrite and say this is 8 log x equals 3 plus 6 log x. Now we can subtract over the 6 log x. That gives us 2 log x equals to 3, which we then can say, as I take this down here, this is the log of x squared equals 3. Now I can rewrite this in exponential form, or I'm sorry, rewrite it from, to exponential form. So remember it's base 10, so 10 to the third power is equal to x squared. And then I can take the square root of both sides. Now, I don't see that answer listed. So then I got to think about it. If I take the square root of something, it's like raising it to the 1/2 power. So that can be rewritten as 10 cubed to the 1/2. And then I can do a power to a power law and say this is to the 3/2. And my answer is B. So use common logarithms to solve the exponential equation. All right, great. So I'm going to, first thing I notice, I have a base of 2, and 16 can be rewritten as 2 to a power, and since it's a negative, since it's a fraction, that means it's a negative power. So my first thing to do is to rewrite this as 2 to the 5 minus 3x equals 2 to the negative 4. And when I have the same base, what I would do, like using logarithms, what you could do is you can say log base 2 of both sides. And what that does, you can cancel out the log base 2 and the 2, and you're left with now the exponents being equal. 5 minus 3x equals negative 4. And then now we can just solve for what x is. X is equal to positive 3. You're gonna go, if you want to go back and play that one again, I'd pause and rewind it. Number 15. They give us a graph, give speed limits along a rural highway. Evaluate what is f of 12, f of 33, f of 36, and then at what x values is the graph discontinuous? All right, fantastic. All right, so let's first answer the first part. So f of 12. Well, f of 12 means when I find 12, I go up to where the line, well, this open circle means I'm not going 60 miles an hour. I actually go up here and say 75. Now, these are listed in order of F12, F33, F36. So right now, that's looking like our answer. But we can double check here. If I do f of 33, go over to where 33 is, would be somewhere right about here. Go up to my line here, and as we look at, okay, what's between 60 and 75, or halfway between the two? Well, it's 15 miles an hour, and half of 15 is 7.5, so that's where they're getting the 67.5 is where they're getting that one. Then the last one we can double check is the f of 36. F of 36, we would skip the open circle, go to the next closed circle, and that would be 75. So there's the answer we want. Again, these values here is where is it discontinuous means where do we jump? So we see that as we start graphing, we have to stop, pick up the pen, which makes us discontinuous, pick up, and we did that at 12. Go over to 18, and that was another point where I was discontinuous because I had to stop, pick up the pen, draw up here. Then at 30, I had to do it again to come back down and start drawing and so forth. All right. A lot of piecewise functions here. The graph of f of x depicts the amount of cash bank teller has at their station after X minutes. When did the largest withdrawal occur? So when did the biggest withdrawal take place? So they started with 800, then there was a withdrawal, and then they came over here, then there was a withdrawal up from there, so that looks like about $200 withdrawal. Then there was a deposit of about 150. Then from here to here, we went from 700 past 500. This looks like a negative 250, something like that. And so as I look at my choices, not those two, here we got 250 listed twice. And that was technically right here is when that took place there. So somewhere around 137 minutes. A salesman sold 250 more than the rest of the sales staff. The sales totaled for the day was $12.50. How much did the rest of the sales staff sell? Okay. So this one we got to kind of create a little equation here to come up with we know the total sales was $12.50. And the salesman sold 250 more than the rest of the sales staff. So if the rest of the sales staff, if we said they were X, then the one salesperson did X plus 250. And then now that would be 1250 equals 2x plus 250. Subtract over the 250. We get 1,000 equals x, 2x, sorry. And then we would get x is equal to 500. Here's another one of those temperature equations. We had one a little earlier. I'm banking. Again, as a sense this final was published on the website for the university. If they put 2 in the review in the first whatever, I'm probably pretty sure that's going to be on the test. Just me just thinking about it. If you have 2 of one type of problems on there, like I see a lot of piecewise, I'm thinking there's going to be at least one piecewise function on the test. Is what my just thinking about it. They want us to go again, do the same thing, find the inequality there. Again, I can set it up the same way in the standpoint, since it's less than, that means I can, less than or equal to 19, that means I can do the negative 19 is less than or equal to the stuff in the middle, less than or equal to the positive. That's how I can set it up. And then we would add the 42 out of the middle. And that gives me 61 degrees over here. And if I subtract those two, I think I get 23. So that would be this would be the correct interpretation. Within 19 degrees of 42. To convert a temperature from degrees to Celsius, you multiply the temperature in degrees Celsius by 1.8, then add 32. Express it as so Fahrenheit temperature taking the Celsius, we would do 1.8 times the Celsius and then add 32. So that would be that one right there. And how many ways can the letters payment be arranged if the letters are taken 4 at a time? Well, how many letters are in the word payment? There's 7. So N is 7. And I'm doing 4 at a time. So now I got to decide, is this a permutation or is it a combination, is what I got to decide now. And again, the hardest part is trying to decide, which one is it? And the easiest one here is to go after it is just doing it as a permutation. And I would do the 7p4, and that gives me 840. All right. Again, here's another solving logarithms. Again, going to find some type of solving logarithms on the final. We've now seen 2 to 3, and this would be the third one. So we want to make sure that we that's something we do. So we need to condense. So what I would first go through and do and see is that I am adding 2 natural logs, which means that I can condense, and multiply the 2 things together. So this is the ln of 18x squared equals ln of 19. Now we would do e to the ln of 18x squared equals e to the ln of 19. E and ln cancel. And we get 18x squared equals 19. Looking good. I still see 18s and 19s, which means I'm getting rid of this. I'm getting rid of that. We would bring over the 18. X squared is equal to 19 over 18. Well, that rules that one out because that has an e there. And then now we're supposed to take the square root of both sides. So x is equal to the square root of 19 over 18. Again, they want you to remember that we can represent that as a fraction power, a rational exponent. All right, the following table gives the outside temperature in degrees for one day in Death Valley, California. Calculate the average rate of change between 7 and 10. All right, average rate of change is just slope. That's just slope. So that's the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So there are the 2 times. So we're going to go 91 minus 78 over 10 minus 7. That would be 13 over 3. And then 13 over 3 would be 4 1/3, which would be that B. All right, 23. Again, we're going to do roughly 30 problems on this video, so hang with me tight. Probably another 5 minutes on this video. Sketch a graph that depicts the amount of water in a 50-gallon tank that is initially full. So it's got to start off at 50. So my initial amount is 0,50. And then a pump is used to take the water out of the tank. It's 4 gallons per minute. And then it's turned off after 5 minutes. Okay. So decrease 4 gallons per minute for 5 minutes. Okay. At that point, the pump is changed to one that will pump water into the tank. The tank takes 2 minutes. The change takes 2 minutes, and the water level is unchanged during that time. So that tells me right there, for 2 minutes, I have a horizontal line. So 2 minutes, I have a horizontal line because it says level unchanged. Then we're pumping into the tank. So then now we're doing a plus 2 gallons for 3 minutes. Okay, so I'm looking for a graph that goes down, flat, and then back up. So it's not that one. Ooh, that's a possibility. Not that one. Ooh, that's a possibility. Okay, so I got two. I got B and D. Now let's say I'm down here on this one. So I see this is 2 minutes. 5 to 7 is 2 minutes. So now I got to check the slopes of these lines here. Is this one going up at a rate of plus 2 gallons per minute? And is this one going down 4 gallons per minute? All right, so let's check this one on the right here. So 31 minus 25 over 10 minus 7 would be 6 over 3, which is equal to 2. Okay, good. It's going up at 2 gallons per minute. Now let's check this other side here. 25 minus 50 over 5 minus 0. That'd be negative 25 over 5, which is negative 5. We needed a negative 4. So that means that is our answer. Now we can go back and double check then to make sure that that's the case. Again, 36 minus 30 over 10 minus 7 is 6 over 3, which is 2. And over here, if I do 30 minus 50 over 5 minus 0 would be negative 20 over 5, which is negative 4. And that's what I wanted. All right. Identify the slope and y-intercept. All right, great. Slope, y-intercept, x-intercept. Well, x-intercept, 1, 0. Y-intercept, 0, negative 1. And it looks like it's a rise 1, run 1. So that says a slope of 3. Can't be it. That's a negative slope. My line's going up from left to right. And then now I just got to make sure I pick the right intercepts here. Again, we said the x-intercept was a positive 1 and the y was a negative 1. So that would be that one right there. Find the probability of the compound events. If 2 8-sided dice are rolled, what is the probability that both numbers will be even? Oh, 8-sided. Okay, so with that in mind, 2 8-sided dice, so the bottoms are 8 and 8. Again, even number of sides. That means there's half the sides are even. So that would be 4 and 4. That would be 1/2 times 1/2, which is 1/4. Complete the numerical representation for the following functions. Given expression as possible. So that's saying g of f of 1. So g of f of 1. So they want us to find what is the f of 1, put that in for x for the g equation and tell me the answer. So f of 1 is negative 1. So that would be g of negative 1. And g of negative 1 is negative 5. Boom, there we go. Compute the average rate of change. Again, slope. They now give me an equation and 2x values. So what I need to do is find the corresponding ordered pair. So I know it's negative 5 comma something and negative 2 comma something. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead and put negative 5 in the equation, figure out what's the y value. So f of negative 5 would be negative 3 times negative 5 plus 4, which would be 15 plus 4, which is 19. And then I put the 2 in there. F of negative 2 would be negative 3 times negative 2 plus 4, which would be 6 plus 4, which equals 10. So let's find the slope, and that should narrow down our answer choices. All right, so 19 minus 10 over -5 minus a minus 2. Again, I chose to start with the 19 first, so that means I had to put the -5 on first on the bottom, so that gives me 9 over, that'd be a -3, because it'd be -5 plus 2. So that's a -3. That means the answer's got to be that. That's the only one with a -3. All right, let's finish up this page. Let's finish up the 32. That'd be a good way to stop on the video. In country X, the average hourly wage in dollars from 1945 to 1995 is modeled by the following piecewise function. They asked us to estimate the average wages for the different years, 1950, 1970, and 1990. So that, with this in mind, 1950 is the only one that uses this equation. The other 2 years use this bottom equation because they both have the equal to symbols in them. And since 1970 is one of the markers with an equal sign, we have to use that one. We can let's find 1950 first, because if it happens to be 342, we can stop, and we know because there's only 3 answer choices here, A, B, and C. So we're going to try to roll the dice to see if we're lucky and if that is the case for the answer. Okay, so I am going to go through and say what is 0.077 times 1950 minus 1945 plus 34 cents. Now, I'm thinking it's not it, because if we're thinking about the average hourly wage in 1950, was it $3.42? Probably not, just because if you ever watch any old movies and stuff, things cost, 5 cents and 10 cents for things for, getting meals and drinks and those kind of things. So I'm thinking that's not going to be the answer, but we'll double check it. This is 0.077 times 5 plus 0.34. So 0.077, whoops, clear. 0.077 times 5 plus 0.34, and I got 0.725, which would be 0.73, 0.725. So that lets me know it's definitely not that one. It's going to be one of those other two. Now, they both have 675 as the last answer, so really only have to try the 1970. And so it's a matter of, okay, was 1970 which equation was it put in there correctly? So we're just going to go ahead and put 1970 in there. If I put 1970, it'd be 0.186 times 1970 minus 1970 plus 3.03. Well, that becomes 0, so that's 0, so it's just 303. So that would be the correct answer. All right, if an object is dropped off the tower, the velocity of the object's t seconds after can be attained by multiplying t by 32 and adding 10 to the result. So 332 times t, then adding 10 to the result. That would be that one right there. Solve the inequality symbolically. So here they just want us to solve and figure out what is the correct set notation for the solution zone. So 6 plus 5y minus 9 greater than or equal to 4y plus 3. Remember, key thing here is when you're working with inequalities, if you multiply or divide by a negative across an inequality, it flips it over. So I'm going to go ahead and combine the 6 and the 9. So 5y minus 3 greater than or equal to 4y plus 3. I'm going to subtract the 4y. I'm going to do that because that keeps my y positive, so I don't have to worry about flipping. And this gives me y is greater than or equal to 6. So that would be 6 to, bracket on the 6 to infinity. There it is. All right, they asked me just to specify the domain here. I see that it's x squared, so this is a quadratic function. So it's a U-shaped opening up. And so with that in mind, if we think about it, our quadratic function, the domain is all real numbers. Remember, we typically only have to worry about it when I see the x under a square root symbol or the x in the bottom of a fraction. I got to start restricting the domain. When we see the x after the log, so those are ones that we restrict the domains, where this one right here would be 0 to infinity. This would be can't equal to 0, so it's everything else but 0. And this one would be 0 to infinity. You can't be 0, so you have to have the curve parenthesis. All right, last one here. This one is very similar to ones we did before up above with the temperature problems. So we just have to solve this. Now, again, it's an absolute value, which means there's going to be typically two answers, especially when there's a plus or minus inside of the absolute value bars. So we set the problem up once the way we see it. Once again, change the answer to be negative. So then as I solve, I get 2, and I get -6. And there we go. All right, so there's the first 32 problems. We'll be back with another video on the another set of 30 problems.